Hi everybody, welcome to the Toronto Real Estate Show with Jenelle and Leslie. I'm Jenelle Cameron.
Hi there, I'm Leslie Pearson.
And we are going to talk about some of the headlines, I guess you could call, in the news right now because there's just so much talk about the real estate market. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you had a great week and welcome back. And before we get started, I will ask, as I always do, that if you have an opportunity just to take a second and do us a favor and please rate our podcast, give us a rating and a comment, and that's really appreciated because, of course, that allows us to put our information out there to others, and it just takes a second of your time, and we really appreciate your feedback at the same time. And on top of that, love your questions and all that kind of stuff. So. So we will talk a little bit today, I think, about what's going on in the news because there's just so much happening in the real estate world, or so little happening, I guess, is lots of talk about so little happening. How's your week been, Leslie? What have you found about kind of?
I'd say quiet.
Yeah.
How about you?
Same. I think it's kind of interesting because with the last interest rate drop, I felt like things picked up like a little bit for maybe a week or two, and that has not happened this time. In fact, it's almost been the opposite. We've had so much inventory come on the market, especially condos, and right now we have, just out of interest, 3 condo listings in one house. House is super busy, but the condos slow. Like they're just not getting showings at all of them. It doesn't matter where they are, all of them. Mm-hmm. So that is interesting, and I guess you're feeling the same.
Yeah, I mean, and that speaks to what we've been talking about. I think feels like forever, but probably for months, where the condo market is quiet, and freehold is also quiet, but at the right price, and a PLR, the house listing Jenelle refers to, is like particularly attractive because of its price point. So it's probably not representative of the busyness of most freehold listings right now. It's probably busier than most.
Yeah.
But I'm a real estate agent, but I'm going to say it. If I was a condo owner, I would not be listing now. If I were a freehold owner, I would.
Yeah, also, like, if you've got, just on that note, if you are a freehold owner and you're thinking about selling and you have one of these types of properties that maybe are less expensive, entry level, maybe need a little work and you don't want to do the work, that's the type of home that's really going crazy right now.
Yeah, that's what's attracting all the attention. And it's so funny because for several years it was, people were only looking at the done houses, and if your house wasn't a done house, then you sat without traffic. But it's changed so much.
Yeah.
So I think that our personal anecdotal experience with our listings is representative of what's going on out there. I think condos are sitting. I think houses, if priced well, marketed strongly, and are somehow unique, and the big uniqueness is price point probably, then there's a bit of action there. But even there, I know of some listings that aren't ours, and they're a freehold, and I think they're like priced really smartly. They're still just sitting.
Yeah.
And
that kind of leads us into the first story, that this is obvious, but we're hearing about this all over the place, and the Globe and Mail reported on this today, saying that of all the surveys that are being done out there, buyers are waiting for further interest rate drops.
Yeah.
And the media, in my opinion, has completely screwed the market, and they always do.
Yeah. Why?
Well, maybe not the media, but the way they hype up the where there's going to be further decreases and just wait and don't buy now. So
they're causing people to hold off.
I think so. I think it's and the government doing it as well is not helping. But we've got all of these people out there waiting for further drops, and I understand that. That makes sense to me. me.
Yeah, I think that they're right. Buyers think that there haven't been enough drops,
Yeah.
and the drops that there have been haven't been enough. I don't know then what it's going to take.
Well, I don't know either, because I mean, I know there's talk about maybe dropping it half a point next time, but if that's fine, but if buyers think that there's going to be further
Even
drops,
more, yeah.
they're not going to do anything until we've hit rock bottom.
And you don't know when you hit rock bottom.
Well, you never
until
know.
You're on the way up.
Right, and then of course the problem with that is, as we always talk about here, but it's relatively obvious, is that the market could potentially go crazy again. So
we would have expected that. It just hasn't happened.
yeah.
The other thing in the news maybe that will give people confidence is that the inflation rate went down a bit.
Yeah.
And that maybe that'll give people a sign of optimism.
I'm not really sure. It's a really weird and kind of scary time for a lot of Canadians, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a scary time. So yeah, I think we just have to really just wait and see about that.
Yeah. So I mean, you got to get your information from somewhere. The media is, bombarding us with information about interest rates. So that's, one place to listen to. But I think more importantly, listen to your advisors on the topics that are important to you. And if, mortgage and financing is your issue, make sure that you hook up with your bank or a mortgage broker and find out from them rather than the media.
Because you're not going to have this house for 6 months. Like, you're probably going to own it or a condo for 20 years. So it's all a bit of a irrelevance in a sense, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And I understand that maybe you pay a little bit more now, but you're better off to pay a little bit more in interest rates than you are in the actual price of the home. But I guess people just think the market's just going to fall out. And
yeah, so that's what we've always said is, your savings in holding off, waiting for a better interest rate are going to be more than kind of counterbalanced by the increased price you're going to pay for that house. Mm-hmm. So it's a false economy. We've always said that. I think people are finding that's not the case, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think it'll shift at some point.
Yeah.
We're just not there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. Let's wait and see. The month of September, which is generally a very good month, has not been...
It won't be, I don't think it'll be as strong as others.
No, it's not proving to be much of anything yet. So I think it's a bit of hold tight. I mean, if for all of you condo owners who are trying to sell, I think you just gotta hang in. Hang tight. It'll happen eventually, I think.
It'll happen 3,000 times? Like, how many condos are on the market? I think last week we talked about South Florida, it was 3,000.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah, it was, I think, 2,600 or something.
So, yeah, you're going to hang tight is a hard message to hear.
It is a hard message to hear.
Because in times like this, you're not putting your condo up for sale unless there's a real strong reason.
True. I mean, that's very true. But I don't know what else.
Yeah, if you have a condo on the market now, Jenelle, and it's not selling, what do you say to people? What do you tell them to do?
Well, I think for a lot of them, that's exactly what I've said. Like, you just have to hang in.
Just wait.
Mm-hmm. Update on that. It's the same amount pretty much this week as there was last week. 2,669 south of Bloor. I think last week we were at like 2,700 or something. So try to remember that 2,669. So at least it's not, 4,000.
I mean, we don't want to, I'm happy, I think that your recommendation is not to, usually the reason a place is not selling, it's all about price.
Yeah.
And you don't want a massive reduction in price across that 2,669 condo listings, because that's just going to make everything crash.
Yeah.
So hold on, if you're at the right price, maybe take the time to ensure that you are at the right price, but then hold on and wait. And make sure your agent is doing everything possible to ensure that your listing is the one that is exciting people.
Yeah.
The problem is, I just think nobody's even going to look. you might be doing everything right, and that people just don't care.
It could be part of the problem.
Yeah.
I'm just looking today, for example, condo sales downtown. We've had 54 new listings today, which is half of what there usually is at this time of day. Believe me, that sounds like a lot, but it's not. We've had 31 terminations.
Yeah.
So that's good. And 7 sales, and 7 sold conditional. So today's numbers are not as bad as I've seen. Hopefully all of those terminateds didn't come back on the market.
Yeah, they'll come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the kind of, I do agree with Leslie, if you don't have to sell, probably now is not the time. But I think, let's be honest, when interest rates, like the next announcement, whatever, October, all of these sellers are probably just going to be waiting for that to happen, and then they'll flood the market again, and then buyers will still do nothing because they're waiting. Like, it's just the same cycle we're in, but I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, it's we've got to do what we can to get buyers to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we doing enough to inform people that this is the time to do it? And do we believe that do we ourselves believe this is the time to do it?
I think, like you do, I think real estate is a long-term investment. I mean, I've bought and sold a lot of houses.
Right, so rates are going to go up and down, values are going to go up and down.
Yeah, I don't really understand to me, owning, property, I own some investment properties right now, and yes, I'm not making the money I was because the interest rates are too high, but does that mean I'm going to sell them in panic? Absolutely not. Like, I know things are going to turn around, even if it's 5 or 10 years, which it wouldn't be, even if it was, like, I'm in it for the long haul. Mm-hmm. I'm aware this is how real estate goes. I don't know. I guess, as I'm talking about this, it could be a couple of different things that have caused this. I mean, we've got, a whole bunch of younger buyers out there right now, younger people entering the real estate market who have never seen any other type of market.
Right, so they don't know about the
they don't know about up and down. Mm-hmm. But then on top of that, I think there just is, in general, a lot of, I'm going to use millennials, but maybe younger millennials out there who really don't value the same type of ownership. Apparently, this is statistically how it is. That our generation did. So
we have read about that. That's the thing.
So maybe they're just kind of like, well, if it's a good deal, maybe I'll think about it. If not,
who cares? It's not a burning motivation
to
own property. That's the thing. So maybe that's it.
And maybe this will change. Yeah. Right. I mean, we've been blaming a lot of other factors. I'm sitting here thinking about all of those, 2,600 condo listings out there. Who are buying those? They would be younger people, and they're just not as motivated.
Yeah, if that generation doesn't have the motivation to buy, then they're going to be sitting on the sidelines no matter what happens with the interest rates and how many announcements there are. Yeah, maybe it's definitely shifted. Yeah, it's definitely shifted. Because it was, to those of us older, home ownership was the end goal. Yeah. But I even find amongst my elderly cohorts, it's changed. Yeah. I don't know if it's even just a millennial thing, but I meet more and more people my age who have no interest in owning anymore. Yeah. I never would have heard that before. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I might fall into that category myself. And I think, why? Well, so I think it's not restricted to millennials. Yeah, it could be. Mm-hmm. On the flip side of that, just is kind of interesting, but the Toronto Star a couple of days ago said in their headline, buyers are back. Toronto real estate market heating up after 3 consecutive rate cuts, but our first-time buyers still out in the cold. Well, this is interesting because at the same time as I read this article, I read one in, I think it was BlogTO, that said something along the lines of we've had less sales than we've ever had in history. Yeah, I don't get the Toronto Star story, to tell you the truth. No. Buyers are back is not what we're seeing. I don't know where, maybe if they've gone back, I don't know where they are. They look the day of the announcement at nothing else, maybe yeah, I don't get it. I don't think that, I don't believe that article. No, they do quote a realtor in Toronto who's claiming that she has been selling things in multiple offers and there's lots of buyers that are interested. And again, it could be a one-off situation.
a 2-off situation, but certainly, and here's, having said that, like we talked about this kind of inexpensive house that we've got listed in Oshawa right now. I think within 48 hours, I'm up to 24 showings or something.
Yeah.
It's busy.
Yeah.
So it's not that everything is like that, but I mean, for the most part, I would not say the buyers are back yet.
No, I definitely wouldn't.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of all about that. The other thing I'm hearing a lot about, and this is probably a little closer to me than it is to some other people, which is why I'm paying attention to it, is just about the struggle landlords are facing right now.
Oh, yeah.
And this has been, quite a situation, really, we're going to blame it on COVID, because
Yeah.
long before COVID.
There were problems before that, but didn't COVID just make it
I think
worse?
it gave the landlord and tenant board an excuse to be bad.
Yeah.
And it's become a problem. And I think, I read an article yesterday, and I can't remember what outlet it was in, so I apologize. But it basically said, like, landlords know and tenants know that they don't have to pay their rent.
Yeah.
They just don't have to pay.
So I think that maybe before COVID, tenants weren't as informed or educated, but they sure. Have you met a tenant lately who didn't know the rights and their way around?
Nope.
No, they know it all, and they'll tell you it all, and it's a tough time to be thinking about becoming a landlord.
It is tough. And so, one of the things I would advise everybody out there, if you're thinking about doing this, is, make sure that you get a property manager and you don't try to manage it yourself.
Yeah.
Because it at least gives a layer of protection where, especially if they're renting it out for you, chances are, in some tough markets, they already have a good pool of tenants available that they would just put into the unit for you. They have paralegals. They have, experience dealing with tenants that don't want to pay, as opposed to, the landlords that they buy their first property and they don't know what to do.
Yeah. Do you have investment properties you mentioned? Do you use property managers to get tenants?
I do, and I will say that
because I think most landlords don't.
I think most do.
Oh, do they use them
I
beyond?
I
just
do.
rent? Okay.
Yeah. But I will say, from my experience, finding capable property management companies have become very difficult as well. And I don't know. There's been a definite shift in property management companies. I don't know if that's because
it's got to be related.
It's got to be related, but they are. I have 3 different ones, and none of them are good anymore.
Oh.
And 2 of them out of 3 were always pretty good. The 3rd one was never that good.
Oh.
But it's sort of like, at the same time, it's kind of like you trade one in for another. So I don't know.
So tenants are more informed than ever, and they're, I don't know, in my view, kind of playing the system.
Right. So then
even
you've
decent
got
people are playing the
even
system.
decent people. So now you've got all potentially condo units, all of these units that are being sold off from investors, not just because interest rates have gone up and their tenants no longer cover their mortgage payments, but also because they're probably having a lot of trouble with tenants.
Yeah.
And now we can't get investors to pick those condos up,
Yeah.
other investors, because they're aware of what's going on in the market. So the landlord and tenant board is a freaking disaster, and until you sort your shit out, I think we are going to be in for a rough ride with respect to landlords and tenants.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a disaster. Okay, so I thought this was cute. The Block TO always has some good stories. They noted every couple of weeks, but recently, a few weeks ago, they gave you a list of 5 different 1-bedroom condos that you can buy right now for under $450,000. And I think these stories are great because you really are able to kind of take a look and say, $450,000, I can afford that. It gives people, I think, a little bit of hope, because all we hear, on top of how bad the real estate market is, we also only hear from most potential buyers how expensive things are, and they're never going to be able to afford to buy anything. So seeing an article like that going that, hey, there's condos downtown for under $450. Yeah, like I can do it. And I don't know how you feel, but my opinion on these things is that who cares how small it is? You can always trade it up in a couple of years.
Yeah. If you were looking to buy one of these investment properties that is for sale, do you think it's a better decision to buy a bigger one than a smaller one?
For an investment?
Yeah. What's the best investment?
I still
strategy?
think the best investment strategy right now would be to buy a house.
Yeah.
I've never been a fan
More than one unit.
of a condo,
Mhm.
yeah, as an investment. It just, and this is exactly
Yeah.
exactly played out as I've always said.
Yeah.
I think you're better off taking advantage of one of these cities who are in a down market, trying to pick up a duplex or a triplex there, knowing you're going to be paying,
Yeah.
a fraction of what you were paying a couple of years ago, and the rents have slightly gone down, but not nearly as much as the cost of housing. So, your margins, your cap rate is much higher than it was before. So that to me makes sense, and I don't know, for all of you out there who are thinking about buying investment property, keep your eyes and ears open, because I think now is not a bad time at all for that. If you can stomach what's
Maybe
going
there's
on.
yet another reason why the downtown investment condo market is quiet.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah. The other thing we read over and over and over again is how hard or how difficult it is for people to enter the housing market, like despite everything that's going on and the housing crisis that we're in. And I'm not even entirely sure what all of this means. I don't know how much of this is about rent, how much of it is about buying, what the city of Toronto is expecting that government can do for them. Like, I find this all very confusing. I've never seen, most big cities in the world are not affordable. That's never going to change. So I'm not really sure what people are expecting our government to do in order for people to be able to afford to buy something.
So what you're saying is this is in the media a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got to come to the realization that it's a fact of life.
I think it might be a fact of life. I mean, we could build more units, but
And you're using as evidence, major cities around the globe where, first-time young buyers are not able to buy in those cities.
yeah,
We're not one of those first-class cities, but
but our real estate
Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
tells you otherwise.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that is it just part of entitlement of a younger generation, thinking the government should be doing whatever to ensure that I can? Is it being raised with expectations that you should have at least what your parents had, if not more, and that's not happening?
Yeah.
Is it a prejudice against the surrounding areas instead of buying in Toronto? I don't think there's that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tough. I acknowledge that.
Yep.
There are creative solutions if you want to look into them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the real estate market of your parents when they bought in 1970 for $10,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it was, we've talked many times about what your household income has to be able to afford at different price points, and that's what's changed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough, and that's that is how we're.
Yeah.
This is how we live now. And I don't know.
I always talked about that with my father. He didn't understand. He would, say all this griping about how hard people had it these days didn't make sense to him. And he said, it was always hard for all of us. And I said, yeah, but you bought your house for $10,000 and you made $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
People may not even be making $100,000 now, but the house is 1.5.
Yes.
How do you not understand that?
Yeah. It's true. I think about my very first house. I paid, I think, $260 or $270.
Yeah, I think that's why I paid $265 for my first house.
Yeah, and we were making combined. I think we were making. I'm gonna say it was less than 60.
Yeah.
Maybe like 58,000. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not a huge. So I would have to look at this like 4 times the amount
Right.
of income. So yeah. So if you look at it that way,
Yeah.
and I can't remember what year that was, but it was tough. You know what I remember at that time, and I'm sure it's the same today. I found it so hard to save money.
Yeah.
And I had my employer put aside, money to go into my RSP, and it might have been $30 out of my paycheck or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you find I'm just curious, like your kids, when they talk about the future and growing up, and does home ownership enter into their conversation ever?
So I have one who does not see the value in being tied down to a home at all, and thinks that it's a misguided goal. I have two that see the value of homeownership as a long-term investment, but don't care if they lived in anything they owned or not. So they might be people who might rent and then own something else, something in Windsor, for example, because they see the logic of the financials of it. Yeah. But do they care if they live in a house they own and they're outside mowing the lawn and whatever? I don't think they feel strongly about it.
And just kind of off topic, but I'm just curious, do any of them value sort of the traditional lifestyle of marriage and kids? And
so the one doesn't.
Yeah.
There's a relationship for sure. The other two do, probably. Yeah. So what about your son friends?
I think that it's kind of mixed. Like when I talk to young people, for sure. I think my son also says, oh yeah, I'll probably buy something in another place. But yeah, I'm just curious how all that works together, because
they're probably swayed by my approach to things, and so I talk a lot about the merits of home ownership, but about different possibilities of making that work. And then you ask about the traditional lifestyle. I also am vocal about, I don't want to get into that, but I really don't understand marriage. And my kids hear that and understand. My daughter in particular totally agrees with me on that.
Yeah.
I think my sons are just much more traditional, and that's probably, they're in very traditional courses at university. They're dating girls that come from very traditional, families, and they grew up in a very traditional expectation kind of neighborhood. So they are a product of their parents to some extent.
It's very true.
But having said that, I have three, and how two could be so polar opposite to one in the same upbringing.
Well, that just
I don't know how that happened.
That's a whole other story, isn't it? Which is interesting. Okay.
But having said that, so actually, all three of my children, even the one who is going to lead a less traditional life, I think will own property. But she talks about owning property in Kelowna, not or something.
Right.
It's not here.
Yeah. And you're probably, because it's what we do for a living, probably agree that wherever you're buying something, I think is a good investment.
Yeah.
I think it's the older I get, the more I realize, I think diversifying your your
you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket.
No, all my eggs are in one basket, so that's kind of
but they are, but they're also different sections of the basket.
Yeah.
So I don't view yours as all in one basket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting just how my perspective of all of that has changed in the last couple of years. So I can imagine, what it must be like for young people being kind of like, and they don't want to be house poor. People don't. I think younger people that I know really value their lifestyle.
Right.
And then if you're buying something too expensive.
Yeah.
But they want the big house with the beautiful kitchen, but they don't want to sacrifice their lifestyle.
Right.
And so they don't want to buy a little tiny condo, which is probably what I would do, because it's better to, I think, own something than nothing. But anyway. That's pretty much all I've got. I think that's kind of what I've been seeing.
That's what's in the news.
Yeah.
I mean, in the GTA real estate is such a hot topic, always.
Yeah.
The first thing when you meet people, that always what they're talking about. And so it's good once in a while to see what's making the headlines.
Yeah, I think it's kind of fun for me to see too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone. So thank you so much for tuning in as always. And if you have questions at all, especially if you want to know about your particular property or your particular circumstances, reach out to us directly, because we can't cover everything here. Obviously, we only can talk in generalities. So please do that. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social channels at the Jenelle Cameron Team. And we hope you have a great week and happy real estate.
Happy real estate, everyone.